Hi, Mike. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, how you doing, Rich?
I'm okay. Mike, how much do you think everything that's happened this year, particularly COVID, has hindered the development of the offensive line? With Coach Troutline coming on in his first year.
I don't think anybody around here is going to use COVID as an excuse. We definitely had plenty of time with Zoom meetings to kind of learn the offense and get acquainted with Coach Troutline. And once we got back here, we had enough time to kind of get used to the new um, techniques and philosophies of how he coached and kind of the offensive line that we wanted to be. But I think there's still always going to be growth as the season goes on. Coming into game one, we definitely weren't as prepared as I feel like we are now as an offensive line, just because we've had time to kind of keep going through those techniques and keep just growing with them.
Greg Pickle.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for your time. The offensive line and the offense as a whole really seemed to take a step forward in the second half at Nebraska. What changed for you guys, and how can you build on that moving forward?
Yeah, I think we definitely took a step forward, and it really all just comes down to execution at the end of the day. Coach Rocket does a great job of putting us in the best position to succeed. So it just really comes down to execution and the fine details of the play, and that's something we talk about a lot. But when we were able to execute those fine details at a high level is when we were doing really well on offense. So we just need to be able to do that for 4 quarters of the game.
Tobias Wilborn.
Michael, yesterday Coach Franklin talked to us about how the testing process for COVID goes and how you guys have to wait a certain amount of time. Kind of walk me through what that mental process is, and then also if you get a teammate what ends up being a false positive, what's that process like?
Yeah, so we come in, we test, then we go wait until we find out our results. And like Coach Franklin said, we have had a good number of false positives, but I think going into the season, we knew that everybody was going to have to prepare as the starter, and we have confidence in every single guy on our roster to kind of step up and be the next man when they have to. So I think that's kind of the main thing we focus on, is just having that next man up mentality, just having trust and confidence in all your teammates.
Evan Patrick.
Hey, Michael, thanks for doing this. On Saturday, we got to see an extended run with Will Levison at quarterback. I wanted to know, from your perspective on the offensive line, what does he add overall to the offense?
We feel really good about both of our quarterbacks. Will was able to give us a spark in that game that we needed. But at the end of the day, we're confident in both our quarterbacks, and we trust both of them a ton. So it just really depends whatever the coaches decide to do. But yeah, we have a lot of confidence in both of them, and I think they both bring a lot of great things to the table.
Nate Bauer.
Hey, Michael. I'm assuming most of us on this call haven't played offensive line. Can you maybe explain in terms for us how big of a change it was technique-wise and scheme-wise, I guess, from transitioning from Coach Limegrover to Coach Troutline?
I'm trying to think how to explain this to you guys. I just think that every offensive line coach kind of revolves around the same kind of philosophies and principles, but they all have different ways that they like to coach and teach the fine details of the position, which is really all that it comes down to when you're playing offensive line. Because at every single snap, you have a good defensive lineman that you're going against, and normally a pretty good offensive lineman as well. And it just comes down to who's able to execute their fine details better. And I think that's one of the biggest changes from Coach Limegrover to Coach Troutline, is that he really harps on the details of every block. Not to a point where he overcoaches it, but to a point where if there's anything important that you need to know technique-wise, you're going to know it for that block. He's going to have you as prepared as possible to put you in the best position to be able to make that block. So I think that's probably the biggest difference, is just harping on the details of harping on the details of the block.
John Pasternak.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Appreciate the time today.
No problem.
Hey, after the game Saturday, Coach Franklin said that he's a lead with love type of guy, which he said before. And yesterday he talked about finding a balance between coaching the team this season through the struggles while also, not being too negative. From your perspective as an older guy, what's your take on how Coach Franklin is guiding the team this season without being too negative while also pointing out, the areas where the team can get a little better and improve?
I think the biggest thing with Coach Franklin is that he's always been consistent. He's always led with love. From the time that I was recruited, coming up here watching practice, kind of all the way throughout. He's always been the same, whether we're winning or losing. Obviously, the critique is going to sound a little bit different, and his overall message will be different. But it's always been from a place of love, and that's the one thing that I've always respected him a ton for, is that he's always been consistent. No matter how good or bad things are going, he's going to show up to work every single day, give us his best, and lead with love, like he talks about.
Rich Scarcella.
Mike, obviously this year hasn't gone the way you guys thought to this point. As a team leader, what do you do? How do you do it to prevent frustration from setting in, not only with your teammates, but with yourself?
I think the biggest thing that I try to do is just to stay present. Whatever happened in the past is no longer changeable. So we just got to keep moving forward and keep our eyes forward. Focus on each practice and each rep at practice to just try to get better and help move this team along. However I need to do that, whether it's bringing some teammates along with me, or whether it's just focusing on my process and making sure that I'm getting 1% better each day. But I think that's just the overall message that we have as a team, is just that we know that we have talent on this roster, and we just need to be able to get this talent to play well and play well together. So our focus every day has just been to get better, no matter whether that's in indies or team. But we just need to get better every single day, and I think that's the only way to kind of move through a rough patch like this.
Tyler Donahue.
Good morning. We appreciate the insight today. Caden Wallace at right tackle now, and Will Fries at right guard. It's kind of a two-part question here. What does that say about Will Fries' versatility? We've seen him, I think, start at 3 different spots during his career. And then also, what has Caden Wallace done, in your view, to make him one of the top 5 offensive linemen who needs to be on the field right now for Penn State?
Coming into the season, we were talking about how much depth we had at the offensive line position. I think it's kind of showing right now with the amount of guys we're playing. But, a guy like Will, to be able to go inside and play and allow us to kind of change things up a little bit is huge, because he can play tackle and he can play guard, so it allows us to have a little bit more versatility with who we're able to get on the field. And then Caden's just been showing up every day and trying to get better. He's been really focused on his details and his fundamentals of his technique, and it's definitely shown. So he put himself in a spot where now we have the confidence in him to put him out there, and I think he played pretty well.
Greg Pickle.
Mike, I hope this question makes sense, and if not, let me know. But looking back on it, you mentioned you feel like you guys are more prepared now compared to week 1, and that makes sense. But I'm just curious, looking back on it, how challenging was it to kind of learn what you were able to over Zoom during the extended offseason and then actually apply that once you got to campus? Was it harder than you thought it would be? Maybe about as expected, maybe a little bit easier? I'm just curious. Everyone was transitioning, no matter what kind of job or thing that they do, to this Zoom virtual world. And I think some things went better than others. But looking back on it, was that harder than maybe you thought it would be, or was it about right?
I would say it was about right. We had a ton of time over Zoom to be able to install the offense, and then we had a good amount of practices once we got back on the campus. Practices, walkthroughs, jog-throughs, all that kind of stuff to be able to install it. And then camp, we had enough time to be able to get it live. So I'd say it was about right. It was a little bit challenging, but I think that's what we all expected.
Nate Bowers.
Michael, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming if things are understood correctly, there's less thinking involved when you're out there. Is that about right? Like that you're not that it would be second nature for you, right? Like that the movements and the techniques and the things that Troutwine's teaching you would be second nature, like that they would just come in kind of instinctively. Where are you guys? Do you feel like in that process?
I think we're pretty far along. Obviously, there's still times where guys will have a mental lapse and not use great technique, but I mean that's going to happen whether you've had this same offensive line coach for 5 years or for a couple of months. I mean that's always going to happen. Guys are going to have mental errors or mental lapses. But one thing we talk about is your think box. So you get the play, and then instantly you just need to be thinking about what technique you need to use on this play with how your defensive lineman is involved or how he's lined up. So I think that's just the biggest key for guys is getting used to just mentally going through that think box quickly, so you know what technique you have to use, and then it's just a matter of being able to execute it. But as far as that, I think we're all pretty good at it.
Okay, we'll have a few more questions here for Michael. Matthew Rudsill.
Hey, Mike, thanks for your time today. First of all, congratulations on the Senior Bowl nomination. What does that mean for you as a player and then for you guys as a team?
Thank you, first of all. But I just think it kind of speaks to the type of staff that we have around here, and just kind of the culture that we've built in the program. I think I've come a really, really long way since I've been here, and I got to give all the credit to the coaching that I've got, and to my teammates for kind of pushing me along and holding me accountable every step of the way and helping me get better along the way. It's going to be a great opportunity for me to go down to that game. But at the end of the day, I couldn't have done it without any of my teammates or my coaches, so I just need to give them all the credit.
We're going to have time for two more questions here. Tyler Donahue.
Staying with that senior theme, Michael, with the circumstances, all of a sudden you've been granted the opportunity, if you chose, and along with the other seniors, to stick around and play more college football and try to maybe raise your draft stock or just try to go win more college games, whatever the motivation may be. Are you pretty locked in on this being your final run with Penn State? And when that NCAA clock was paused, did that create new conversations with you and the coaching staff, with you and your family? I'm just wondering, how did that kind of impact your perspective on your career at this stage?
To be very honest with you, I haven't really thought about it much. I always try to stay present, and right now I'm focusing on the games that we have in front of us. So honestly, I really haven't thought about it, but I'm sure at some point, once the season winds down, there will be some kind of conversations. But like I said, I haven't really thought about it.
Final question, Rich Scarcella.
Mike, going forward, what are the biggest issues or issues that the offense has to solve the rest of the season?
I really think it all just comes down to the details. That's something we talk about a lot as an offense. I think Coach Rock is doing a good job getting us in great situations. So then it really just comes down to us being able to execute our details better than the defense. That means everybody winning their one-on-one matchups, and especially up front, all five guys playing together as one. It comes down to great communication, starting with me, being echoed out to our tackles and tight ends when necessary. But at the end of the day, it really just comes down to us being able to execute our details better than the defense.